I'm Alec Baldwin, and you're listening to Marketing Trends, and the leads aren't weak.
When Hyland was founded, its initial purpose was to help optimize workflows and processes by eliminating filing cabinets. More than 25 years later, as businesses have gone through digital transformations, the filing cabinet mission no longer applies. So Hyland did what any good business does. It adapted by following the data.
The trick is you have to go where the data is telling you to go. And if you've run certain types of tactics in certain verticals and they haven't worked very well, you have to be able to then take those learnings and help kind of set expectations.
That's the voice of Hyland CMO Drew Chapin. And on this episode of Marketing Trends, he dives deep into the power of data and why marketers need to let it fuel their decision-making. Plus, Drew discusses the advantage of virtual conferences and why one particular partnership is leveling up Hyland's game. Enjoy this episode. Marketing Trends Podcast is brought to you by Salesforce. We bring marketing and engagement together. Learn more at salesforce.com/marketing.
Welcome to Marketing Trends. I'm Ian Faison, host of Marketing Trends, and today we are joined by special guest, Drew. How are you?
I'm great, Ian.
Well, we're excited to have you. We're going to be talking about everything that has been going on from your time in the Army all the way through to being CMO here. So let's get into it. How did you get started in marketing?
I transitioned to marketing from my military career. So I went to undergrad, Army ROTC at Penn State. And then when transitioning out of the military, I did a pit stop and got my MBA at Vanderbilt. While I was there, I did an internship at Compaq Computer Corporation, which is now Hewlett-Packard, in marketing, and ended up getting hired there full time and really liked marketing. The blend of strategy and kind of general business management and creativity was really attractive to me, and I was hooked. And then since then, I've had a pretty long B2B tech focused marketing career. Went from HP to eventually SAP North America, and I was there for about 7 years, and until I joined Hyland about 8 years ago as their CMO.
Yeah, and so tell me, 8+ years ago, you joined Hyland. Now, flash forward to today, what's it mean to be CMO of Hyland?
Well, it's funny, it changes, right? As when Hyland was smaller, and I mean, it was still pretty decent size when I joined, about $240 million of revenue. But at smaller companies, that technical expertise in the functional areas of marketing is more important because the teams are smaller and people have to wear more hats. And as Hyland has grown, my job has kind of transformed from the technical areas of marketing to leadership. And I spend most of my time today helping teams, removing obstacles so teams can be successful, empowering teams, aligning teams to overall company business objectives. And I don't spend as much time on the day-to-day marketing technical areas anymore.
And so for listeners who don't know, tell us a little bit about Hyland.
At a high level, Hyland helps organizations optimize workflows and business processes, especially those that include content and unstructured data. So we're in a space called the content services application space. And our legacy was getting rid of paper. So more than 25 years ago, we would measure the value of a deal based on the number of filing cabinets that we were going to get rid of at a particular company site. So it was scanning those documents, indexing them, and then using the information we pull from those documents in business processes and workflows. Kind of the core value prop is still similar, except we're not dealing with paper much anymore. It's more unstructured data and digital documents. And an example of some of the processes we automate are things like accounts payable automation, insurance claims management, providing a single view of patient records for health providers. So there's, every ology at a hospital has their own application that they're collecting patient information on. Well, somehow that has to get pulled together so the health provider can provide better care. So Hyland has solutions in all those areas.
And so what does your team look like? Is it pretty traditional technology marketing team with, all that stuff, or any differences?
No real differences. Every capability you'd expect from a modern B2B marketing organization, from the corporate functions like corporate communications and brand and creative and product marketing, AR, PR, those types of areas, demand generation, operations and planning, analytics. We have a pretty growing operations team to manage our tech stack. We are investing more and more in applications to help us with things like SEO and account-based marketing, and of course our marketing automation platform. There's our web CMS. We're becoming more and more technically oriented as marketing professionals, and so there's investments there as well. And then I have your kind of older school event planners and teleprospectors and direct marketing resources as well, and those are still important, but the growing areas are really in the digital and tech areas.
And so, as you've, over the past 8 years, as you've kind of taken on, new responsibilities and the company has changed, were there certain things that like you kind of took from some of those previous roles and kind of like have evolved to now you're the new state of being the CMO at Hyland?
Well, I mean, you're talking about past experiences that I've drawn from?
Yeah, past experiences you've drawn from, but also, having been at a company for 8 years, a lot of times, especially in tech, you see folks, jumping from kind of role to role to role. You've been there a while. I'd imagine that like, some of those previous experiences, the technologies and the channels and things like that you're using have obviously changed a bunch. So just trying to see, what were some of those threads that you pulled from previous and earlier in your career?
Oh, yeah. So, well, I was fortunate, to work at SAP, which is a really modern and sophisticated marketing organization, extremely talented people, very mature processes and approaches. And so I was kind of immediately able to apply the learning from my experience there at Hyland. Hyland was an emerging mid-sized software company when I got here. We'll surpass $1 billion in revenue next year. So we've grown, almost 5x from when I started. And so being able to kind of bring some of those more mature processes and approaches to branding, to demand generation, to lead qualification and account-based marketing to a smaller emerging company, I found that I was able to contribute a lot, early on. And that's just evolved. And challenge for me now is not to get kind of stale. I mean, one of the benefits of moving from company to company, and as a lot of marketing professionals do every several years, is you get new, more diverse experiences. So I have to seek those out in other ways through professional development organizations and talking to my peers. In fact, there's there's a SAP CMO veterans kind of Zoom call that one of my colleagues has started.
Oh, nice.
We're all like CMOs at different tech firms now, and we're jumping on Zooms every other month or so to share, not only what we're learning just in our ongoing jobs, but also what we're doing now, given COVID-19 and some of the changing dynamics in marketing.
Yeah, what's the talk of the town right now? What are people worried about?
Well, it's really kind of near term is trying to plan out your budgets for next year. So what's going to happen to events? Events has been a lever that has been part of the marketing mix for years and years and years. And even though digital has been on the rise recently and become a bigger chunk of marketing, there's still that kind of fundamental face-to-face selling and marketing that was a core part of our marketing mix. Well, that's changing. So it's figuring out if we're going to reduce our planned budgets for events and trade shows and conferences, how much do we reduce it? And what happens if it comes back? So you're contingency planning for these different scenarios. And then it's for the events themselves, and we just finished our big customer conference last week virtually, and we learned a ton through that process. And with all the data we were able to collect, and I was looking at some of it this morning, it makes me wonder, should we do that more often? And should we transition some of these in-person events to digital experiences? Because there's just so much more you can do. We're able to see what content is resonating with our audience and how long are they viewing certain sessions. And then that virtual experience kind of lives on for 60 to 90 days after the conference, where our customers can come back and consume additional content. So treasure trove of data is really interesting to us. And going forward, we'll certainly be leveraging that.
Yeah, what are some of the other ways that that you're leveraging data in your marketing? Obviously, every marketer is trying to, get as close to their data strategy as possible right now.
We use data every day at Hyland in marketing for everything from measuring the performance of campaigns and tactics in those campaigns to pipeline analytics, and then creating a 360-degree view of our customer. We're just learning more and more as we collect information from these different systems that our customers engage us on. We're able to get more personalized, and we're able to test and fail faster, right? If things aren't working, because we're able to see, is that increasing traffic? Is that increasing conversions, or is it not working? So, we're definitely investing more. I've hired some data scientists to come on to help us make sense of the data and help us build, a more modern environment for all of our marketing data. And then it's partnering with all the other departments at Hyland that collect data on customers. And, how do we stitch that all together so we're looking at one complete view as opposed to multiple kind of like partial views that live in these different systems.
So, there's this kind of, rise of, the data-driven marketer. And then you have kind of like the next evolution of that, which is like the AI-driven marketer. Are you looking at AI these days?
We are for sure. We're AI and predictive is something we recently invested in, not only to help us automate some of the processes that were formerly kind of manual. So I mentioned teleprospecting earlier. Well, we use chatbots now to help us qualify the visitors to our website, or at least direct them to the content that they need. And it's all done through kind of pre-built workflows that, are responding to, whatever is they want to look for on the website. So that's one area that we're investing in. So it's that, and then it's using that data that we collect to create more personalized experiences. So, and not only on our own websites, but we use it for retargeting and trying to, and we use it, in social media. So there's just lots of areas where, we're definitely investing in some of those more modern technologies.
I love the analogy of like, originally the way that you looked at like success was how many file cabinets could we remove. It's a great marketing like visual. With a product like yours, obviously you're now in a ton of different industries. How do you kind of deal with like marketing the complexity of all the different use cases, all the features and functions, all the industries and things like that?
Yeah, I mean, it's complicated and expensive. And so we have to, it's kind of a combination of the platform and promoting the benefits of the platform to a CIO or to an IT audience, as well as getting specific into vertical applications. And that's always been a real challenge for us is, one of our special sauces, so to speak, has been our deep knowledge of various industries. So our ability to partner with our customers and help design solutions that are very specific to business processes in their industries has been a differentiator for us and allowed us to win a lot of business. From a marketing standpoint, though, those are expensive strategies to execute. You have to prioritize those value scenarios based on potential revenue, and you can only invest in like the top 5 or 6 and be successful. If you try to spread your time and your money around too many areas, you really end up failing in all of them. So one of the biggest challenges for us, and our CEO is an optimist. So when he hears a good idea, he is all full speed ahead. And that becomes challenging sometimes, where you have to kind of somebody on the executive team will have to kind of reel him back in a little bit, because he's super passionate about helping customers. And he's not alone. There's a lot of optimists on the executive team. So you need somebody with some real kind of data to provide a perspective on those conversations to make sure that you're investing in the highest priority and highest potential areas.
Yeah, and I'm curious, like, how does that fit in with sales? Because you always fear the conversation with the sales manager who's like, you keep investing in whatever healthcare and financial services, but what about me? I'm here, doing work in this other industry, and we never get a white paper, we never get a whatever.
Right. Yeah, the you can't put a jelly bean in every jar approach. Yeah, it's tough, and that's where I think data comes in reporting. What I found too, which is really interesting in those conversations, is everybody at the company, or especially salespeople, and this isn't a knock on salespeople, they're just super passionate. They're experts in marketing, or they claim to be experts, and they'll have really interesting ideas, and they'll want to pursue those. The trick is you have to go where the data is telling you to go. And if you've run certain types of tactics in certain verticals and they haven't worked very well, you have to be able to then take those learnings and help kind of set expectations in some of the other business areas when you're getting requests for certain tactic types. And that was a big challenge 5-6 years ago as digital started coming on strong and an in-person event tactics started being less and less effective. Salespeople like to be out in front of their customers and prospects. And when I arrived at Hyland, we were overinvested significantly in events and way underinvested in digital channels. And so we had to change the tide there. And one of the ways I did that is I partnered with the head of sales, and I brought him out to the Serious Decisions conference. This was probably 5-6 years ago. And I made him sit through sessions where he was listening to best practices and case studies of companies that were leveraging these digital channels to wild success. And he drank the Kool-Aid, so to speak, and has become a huge advocate for us. And so that just helped in those conversations to have the executive level support, to take the time to educate your business partners and your leaders, so you can move the company forward.
That's a great story. I don't know the success rate of bringing your business partner to an event with you, but it's always something that we talk about with, like, when you're a marketer, getting people to read, like, in a buying committee, to, like, read the same book or, like, watch the same webinar or, like, do the same. If you can get people on the same page, quite literally sometimes with a book or an event or whatever, like, that's the value. I mean, it's one of the reasons why Dreamforce has been such a successful business driver for a decade, is because if your whole executive team goes, they have some, like, shared experience that is like an understanding of, where the future is going. That's a great place to be, but it's a good idea to do it on your own team as well, not just for your customers.
Yeah. And I've done the Dreamforce trip with our head of sales. And so, I reciprocated the Serious Decisions, so to speak. The Serious Decisions visit was a visit to Dreamforce, which is a spectacle. I'm not sure how else to describe Dreamforce. It's pretty crazy. Hundreds of thousands of people in descend on San Francisco to talk about sales and marketing best practices for a week. It's pretty impressive.
Well, so I'm curious. You've done a lot of work around customer success and the importance of customer success. Salesforce and others have championed make it evident in things like Dreamforce, but it's really kind of like the new normal for tech companies to have such an obvious focus on customer success, marketing through the sale. Kind of the idea of marketing through the renewal, sort of a thing. I'm curious, like, how do you think about customer experience and marketing, through the journey, not just to acquisition?
Yeah, it's just gotten to be it's table stakes now. I mean, it's been a part of Hyland's core values since day one. Employees are our family and customers are our partners, are our first two core values. And at Hyland, you see that reinforced every day. For example, we host an all company meeting every Monday our CEO hosts an all company meeting for 30 minutes on Mondays at 10:30. And during that meeting, we do two things to recognize customers. First, we recognize every new customer we sold the week before, no matter how large. Like this morning, I think it went at an $8 or $9 million deal, and then there was like a $2,000 deal, and we recognize each customer by name, and then every week we spotlight a customer success story, and it's usually a deployment or an innovation, and we celebrate that customer's success. So that's been going on at Hyland since before I started 8 years ago. We also recently decided to create, and this might be what you're kind of getting at, the more the complete view. We just created a new C-level role at Hyland, a chief customer success officer, and her job is to help kind of stitch together all these different customer success initiatives that are happening all over the company and align them better so we can serve our customers better. So marketing is going to play a huge role in that. We have a lot of engagement points with customers, from acquiring new customers to getting them kind of up and running and successful, to upselling them, and then loyalty, of course. And so when I'm thinking about our marketing strategy, you kind of think about strategies in all those areas. There's the strategy to acquire a new customer. There's the strategy to get them up and running and successful. So there's like welcome kits, and there's engagement in your customer communities, and then there's expansion of solutions and software that you've sold into that customer to help them be more successful. And then ultimately there's the loyalty piece. And so I think about all four of those dimensions in what our marketing strategies are. And when I'm honestly assessing Hyland's kind of breadth of offering across those four different strategies, some areas are really strong, and especially on the front end on the acquiring new customers. And we're still, growing and emerging and getting better on the loyalty and the, the upsell, cross-sell parts of the equation. And I think a lot of companies and a lot of marketing departments are kind of dealing with that now. Because traditionally it was marketing's job to get net new prospects in the door, and customer renewal piece that you mentioned, it has become more and more important.
Yeah. So how does that kind of fit into your campaigns? And maybe we could take a step back and just say, like, what are some of your favorite campaigns that you've had over the years?
Well, I think that what I'd say about campaigns is that I think you have to, sometimes simpler is better, right? And we talked a little bit earlier about the bright idea, the shiny object. And, I think the shiny object's okay if that's where the data is telling you to go. But to me, sometimes the most successful campaigns are the ones that are the ones that are the simplest. And, an example I've always kind of gone back to is even at SAP, when we would look at vertical focused campaigns versus horizontal campaigns that we would run. And then you would hear kind of the bottoms up demand for those really specific niche type campaigns for the vertical that particular individual is responsible for, or the customer audience that person's responsible for. And then when I would look at the data, when I would look at what are buyers in this vertical engaging with and what's helping us convert leads to opportunities and bookings, it wasn't always these vertically aligned campaigns. In fact, sometimes it was more on the kind of the product and horizontal side of the house. And I think as marketers, we have to look at that data comprehensively. And it's a mix. It's not an either or, it's both. And finding that mix of specificity and then horizontal type of campaign specificity in like a vertical or a particular audience area, I think is key to optimizing your spend and your marketing tactics.
Can you talk a little bit about the PGA partnership?
Yeah, that's been a lot of fun. In my non-work life, I'm a golf nut, so this it's not why we chose the PGA Tour. We actually did some research with our agency to identify sports that CIOs, CFOs, and CEOs engage with, both through viewing and participation. And for us, golf, tennis, Major League Baseball, these were sports that kind of popped for us. And we looked at lifestyle things as well. And we chose PGA, I think, because it was the one that fit the best, and it has global reach. So Xander Schauffele is a brand ambassador for Hyland. He's a top 10 player. We really kind of lucked into that one. He's just consistently performed really well. And so it's primarily a brand awareness investment, but also it's part of we're trying to tell a story, with Xander. And so the campaign that we've been running with him is called the XFactor campaign. So what are the X factors that that Xander focuses on to improve his golf game? And we kind of use that story to talk about, Hyland can be an X factor for your business in the way that we help automate business processes, workflows, and help customers serve their customers better. So it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah. So as you're kind of looking to make, an investment like that, and I love the X factor. That's great. How do you think about like putting that into other things that you're doing, other campaigns that you're working on? Like, how does this thing take on an ever-present kind of evolving thing that you can measure and track? I know it's a brand play, but I'm just curious how you think about that.
Yeah, we are thinking about that. We started by just dipping our toe in the water and getting this campaign out the door and focusing on awareness for the X Factor campaign. But now we're looking at, okay, how does this extend down to our demand motions? Can we use this story and this, to help talk about X factors for higher ed or healthcare providers or banks or insurance companies or government agencies, all these potential customers that we sell to. So it's a theme that kind of resonates. And when I talk to my team, I kind of point at campaigns, and one that I have a lot of familiarity with is the best run businesses run SAP. I mean, that campaign is so simple in the way that, if you partner with SAP, then you'll be doing what best run businesses do. And we took that campaign. There was the brand investment that we were making on television advertising and airports. And then there was at a demand level, we had the best run event series. We had best run webinars where we would talk about, the best run aspects of, whatever it was, XYZ. And we were able to extend that brand campaign down to a tactical level. And so, we look at our X Factor campaign in a similar way. We think in 2021, you'll start to see it, cascaded down to, a more tactical level, as well as the brand investment we're making.
And so when you sponsor a golfer, what is that like? What is it? Is it something that you set up? I'd imagine each one is pretty bespoke. Like it's not like an event sponsorship or something like that, that there's, you're working individually potentially with an agent, or you're working with PGA. Like, how does all that work?
Yeah, we work with his agent. So our agency, Jack Morton, they're out of Detroit. They're a event experience agency. They've got a lot of experience with sports sponsorships. So, they reached out to his agency, Octagon, and there was sponsorship opportunity available. And then it just comes to you obviously want to invest in brand ambassadors that are going to be good. You're going to get airtime in tournaments. So you want successful athletes, but also for us, it was really important that, Xander or whoever we chose would have shared values. So he's a fierce competitor, but he's also a really nice and genuine young man. So, we thought that was a good partnership for us. And, and we've had some success there. So we're looking at potentially expanding and maybe bringing another ambassador on in the next 12 months and, expanding our investment in golf, because we found a lot of, it's been driving, the campaign we've been running has been driving a lot of traffic to our website. And it's a lot of net new traffic, people that had never been to our website before. So, it's been successful.
And is that primarily from assets that are out there from like PGA assets and his website and things like that, and or social media, or is it assets that you're co-creating with that? Seems like there's just a million opportunities that you could do there.
All of the above. So we've done Facebook Live events with him and his dad. So his dad is a swing coach, and so we did kind of we did a more exclusive event with them. We did a Facebook Live event. We've done our own content creation, just digital advertising, display ads. We've got some videos that we did. We spent a day in San Diego last year. Boohoo. Had to go to San Diego for a couple of days in the fall when it was getting cold in Cleveland.
That's tough.
Yeah, no, I'll go to San Diego anytime. It's beautiful out there. But yeah, there's that. And then we've also done some blogging, and he's done some blogging for us. And so we've leveraged his social media channels to push out that content. We've paid for some advertising on PGAtour.com and Forbes and Fortune and some other media outlets as well. So yeah, I mean, there's a content strategy that goes into that. And then also, obviously, the activation plan, across the multiple digital channels where people are consuming content.
The reason I ask so many questions, I think it's such a cool partnership. And I think a lot of times, you see a lot of times people spend money on sports to get the box seats. You know what I mean? Like that a lot of it is an event-based kind of strategy with sports. And with golf, it's almost more of a influencer kind of a play than anything else. It's a very different sort of a thing. And I think it speaks to more of like, what does this, like the future of influencer marketing and, finding folks that align with your brand values, like you said, and are popular and all that, like many episodes ago, I think it was like 100 episodes ago or so, we had, a former marketing leader at Kaiser, who was the one who signed Steph Curry before Steph Curry was what we know today. And it was like the best marketing investment that they ever made, So it's like probably one of the best marketing investments of all time. Getting young Steph Curry before he wins multiple championships and all that sort of stuff. So, I mean, I think that what's so cool about these type of partnerships is like, there's room that it can be like exponentially great. And like, that's what's so exciting of like, when you have a brand play like that, I think a lot of people spend money on brand plays and they just kind of like do something that is like a fixed brand play, right? Like a website takeover or something like that, where it's like, yeah, it could be super successful, but what is like the long-term effects of that? And when you invest in content or partnerships or influencers or things like that, like you can reap 10x, 100x results, especially if it's integrated into all the other stuff that you're doing.
Well, you're so right. And you mentioned influencer marketing. That's emerging in B2B. That's been successfully executed on the consumer side for a while. You have brand ambassadors for, you name it, any consumer brand usually has, a celebrity spokesperson or some type of influencer that's helping them. But in B2B, it's not as prevalent. And I think you're so right. Like a lot of times in B2B, it's the chairman's choice, right? It's the logo on the sleeve or whatever. And that's it. There's no story behind it. And I think that the amplification is the story, right? And like, how do you tell that story? How does that relate back to your brand? And you mentioned too, like what type of experiences can you create that are viral in nature? So, we've had a lot of brainstorming around that. Unfortunately, because of COVID, we haven't been able to do some of the in-person type of engagement we would have liked to have done with Xander this year. But we think next year and hopefully the year after, we'll be able to start executing some of those ideas that get, media attention that you said earlier. I mean, it can really amplify, the engagement with your brand. So, we're excited about that, and investing in influencer marketing too. We've been buying research and attending some conferences and talking to some of our peer groups about, things we need to be doing there to improve.
Well, I think golf is also an interesting, when people always talk about, back in the day, golf is like, the sport of business, things like that. And I think, there's a lot, I think the way things are sold and marketed these days are different from that kind of like the old school sort of like, hey, I'll take somebody golfing and, close the deal by hole 15 sort of a thing. But I think though that like what's so interesting to me about golf or individualized sports is in terms of like a marketing sponsorship thing is, so first of all, Xander has a sweet name that like everybody who follows the tour knows because he has a cool name and he's a great golfer and he's like a rising star. But it's also like the way that golf is that you have this kind of like ever present, like every time they could win, being in the hunt, you have like all this stuff. So I'm curious, like, how do you look at being responsive within that, right? It's like if he's on the leaderboard on day 4, he's going into Sunday. Like, are you like, messaging the rest of your team? Like, hey, we better fire off some tweets here.
Are you asking if we had a Xander Schauffele US Open champion ad ready to.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you have to plan for those things. And, he's played well. Unfortunately, he hasn't won a tournament in the year and a half. He's finished second probably 5 or 6 times. So we're looking forward to the Masters. But yeah, you do have to be nimble that way and have some carve out some ad spend and have some creative ready to go if there's an opportunity like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's something cool because, it's kind of like creating a really killer asset, that you want to save some money in case, for promotion, obviously, of course you need to do that, but you need to save some money in case like somebody famous picks it up and shares it or something like that. But really you're in lockstep with Xander. Like every time, he's playing, you're playing, right? Like you're now the biggest fans because you want him to do well. And there's kind of that, aligned incentives, which is a great place to be when you're a marketer, right? Like you want aligned incentives with your partners. And I think a lot of times what we have is, potentially you're making investments in marketing that like might be, not that aligned incentives. If you buy a magazine ad, like, does the people actually care if you get like a huge amount of lift from that ad? Like I'm sure they do in theory because they want you to buy more ads, but it's a very different kind of relationship.
Yeah, it really is.
Switching gears towards teamwork, obviously culture and teamwork, a huge part of Hyland. As you're thinking about, building your marketing team, what are the skill sets that you look for? How do you think about, talent and developing talent and things like that?
Yeah, it's a really great question. I think I've mentioned earlier the technical competence and domain expertise in particular functional areas, that's table stakes. And in my view, that talent's kind of easy to find. I mean, there's lots of very smart, educated marketing professionals, experienced marketing professionals out there. To me, what sets Highlanders and people I like to work with apart from the general population is the softer skills. Do they share your core values? Skills I look for in marketing professionals and leaders are things like empathy and curiosity. Can this person genuinely listen to somebody who has a different point of view than they do and is open to being influenced and changing their mind? I don't want someone who's a know-it-all or is someone who is a credit taker or an empire builder. Team, customers, and company is so much more important. I want people who take responsibility and I want to empower them to be successful, right? And so I look for the softer skills. Obviously the technical expertise and technical competence, that's important. But once we kind of check that box, then it's team fit and the softer skills that I think make the difference.
We talked about some of the campaigns that you liked over the years. Any campaigns that were a big learning experience or campaigns that maybe didn't go so well?
How long do we have? Well, I mean, even recently, I mentioned earlier, this is a really recent example, but we did an executive focused and a high touch event with Xander Schauffele, and Mike Tirico hosted it, and it was a risk, and we hadn't really done anything like that before, and it was done virtually, and it was okay, but we had high expectations for that event, and we just had a hard time getting executives to carve out some time to spend on a Zoom with a professional athlete. And I think what we're learning about these virtual experiences is that people are experiencing some fatigue right now. And so, we're not alone. I was on a virtual hospitality event with Salesforce last week with Webb Simpson, actually. So they're trying everything, they're trying too. We're all trying, but yeah, we're all trying these different things.
Oh, there you go.
Sometimes they're working and sometimes they're not. And so what we learned there is that it just, it has to be, it wasn't that, I think it was well thought out. It was just we didn't get the type of engagement and traction we thought we would. We thought people would jump at the chance to spend some time with a professional athlete and get them, observe an interview with Mike Tirico and ask some questions. But we had a hard time getting traction there. So I guess what we're learning about this whole virtual experience is that early on in the pandemic, I think there wasn't as many of these, but now companies have caught up and there's a lot of options out there to engage customers. So you have to stand out.
Okay, let's get into our lightning round. These questions are fast and easy. just like marketing with Salesforce. You can go to salesforce.com/marketing to learn more about marketing on the world's #1 CRM. That is Salesforce. Salesforce brings marketing engagement together. Learn more, salesforce.com/marketing. Lightning round questions. Drew, are you ready?
Fire away.
Number 1, do you have a hobby that you picked up during shelter in place?
Puzzles.
A puzzle person.
Yeah, we had a new puzzle going every few days. I have 10-year-old twins, so it was a family event. I think we did everything. Probably the hardest puzzle we did was the Jaws poster, because the water's all the same color. Like once you get the shark done and the swimmer and the Jaws, the word, then it got really hard after that.
I'm with you. We did like a Finding Nemo puzzle, like back last Christmas. It was brutal. Just a lot of blue.
Right. And then the other hobby was bird watching. So again, 10-year-old twins looking for things to do. Got some bird feeders and a Birds of Ohio bird book, and we mark off birds as we see them. So that's been a lot of fun. Nice.
Great in-person outdoor activities. Love it. Do you have a favorite book or a podcast that you've read or listened to recently?
Podcasts. I like How I Built This with Guy Raz. It's so interesting to hear the stories of entrepreneurs.